Hey, welcome back to the War Journal podcast. I can't believe it's episode 20 already, and the story is just beginning. So, in the last episode, I talked about probably the most powerful journal entry that I wrote during my time in Desert Storm. And now I want to talk about this transition period. Now, the war is over, there's a lot of uncertainty and things that are happening. And let's get into it with a couple journal entries, and I also have a letter home that I want to share with everyone. March 1st, 1991. Today is basically a maintenance stand-down day. Cleaning gear, rifles, vehicles, and other shit. Yesterday we went souvenir hunting. I got a bayonet for an AK-47. It's pretty cool. Other people fared better, finding AKs and other neat shit. Just burning time until the Freedom Bird flies us all back to the good old USA. The war was officially over at that point, and I don't know if many people remember, but the war was projected to last months, if not years. There was expected to be hundreds of thousands of people dying, deaths, and the Iraqi army was just destroyed within 96 hours. Kuwait was liberated and the war was over. And for me, that was just fine. There was a part of me that wanted to see more combat and action because of, all the training and to prove myself. But, the little combat that I saw in Desert Storm and the firefights was enough to prove to myself that I had the mettle and that I could, that I was trained and prepared to do everything that I needed to. I had nothing more to prove to myself or anyone else at that point. And I really looked forward to, going back home. And that was my focus. But there was still so much uncertainty going on. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a minute and share a letter that I wrote home that kind of, I think, captures, what I was feeling at the time. It's fun reading these letters, I don't open them until I read them to you, so they're kind of a mystery. Dear Dad, I received your package yesterday, and it is greatly appreciated. I especially enjoyed the canteen, which I have been sharing with a couple of good friends in the platoon. I don't know if you remember, but my father would send me canteens filled with Jack Daniels, and what I would do is I would share those with a couple buddies, and we would smoke cigarettes and drink Jack Daniels, and we would use that time to kind of like decompress and hang out and have fun. And it really was a memorable experience for drinking in Desert Storm. Dad, I understand you want me to stay in the Marines, but my decision is college, and after college, possibly the Corps, but maybe a government job with the FBI or CIA. It's still 20 years and retire, and it pays a lot more than this crap. My father and I used to kind of talk about my path forward and what I should do, and we differed in our opinions, and he really wanted the best for me and wanted me to stay in the Marine Corps and do 20 years and retire. And I didn't see my future in the Marine Corps as an enlisted person. I did, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to become educated. I wanted to, find education, and that was my number one goal. But I always entertained the idea of going back in the Marine Corps or in the military as an officer. I saw a huge contrast in lifestyle and pay and responsibility, and I really, in my heart, believe that I could be a great leader of Marines or go back into the military in some capacity, and that was always in the back of my mind. I am still young though, and I want college for a couple of reasons. I will always have an education to fall back on, and a little party time to forget about this wouldn't help. There's really funny stories that I share with you in future podcasts, but I did attend Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I enjoyed my time there. I pledged a fraternity, I played rugby, I bartended, and really enjoyed my experience at IUP. And I, at the same time, was very fortunate to study. The discipline that I had from my time in the Marine Corps and in recon really helped me in my education. When other kids were, hungover and not going to class, I was there at my class every morning at 8 o'clock. Helped me prepare, study. The discipline was invaluable, and it really helped me in my education. Well, I know the family is worried, but tell them there is nothing to worry about. I am truly convinced that there are no more hardcore Marines. Let me talk about this in a minute. Let me finish what I was the letter. I am confident in my abilities along with my superiors, but I am still not given the chance due to my aggressive style of leadership. You figure it out. I saw this, transformation, back in 1991, where, when I joined the Marine Corps and I first got to 2nd Recon Battalion, there were some really hardcore Marines there, guys who I had a lot of respect for, and these guys were studs. Physically, they were, and just good men. And I saw, my time in the Marine Corps, and especially in Desert Storm, how it really wasn't in vogue to be, hardcore Marine at that time. And it was really, go along to get along. And I really see that happening more and more in our society. And when I talk about being a man or being in the service, and we have this woke culture that really influences us. And it's hard to be that hardcore Marine or that stand-up man, because you're either persecuted or you're looked at as you have this toxic masculinity. And I saw that happening then, and I saw it in college, which I have a really funny story. My first day at IUP, I was in a English 101 class, and our professor was, let's say he was flamboyant, and the first thing he said is, "Okay, class, we're gonna open up with an icebreaker. Everybody tell us about yourself." And I was sitting in the back of the class, and this girl walked in, when class had already started. She was wearing a pair of black Doc Marten boots and with the high heels, and she had some purple hair and green hair and a nose ring with a chain to her ear. And, this is me coming out of North Carolina. And, now I'm thrown into this college atmosphere, and, I just look over at her. I'm like, whatever. Anyway, she gets up and she tells a little about herself, and then I'm the last person to speak. And I remember, and I didn't really pay attention to anybody. And I remember, the first thing I said was, "Hey, good morning. My name is Jim Sisco, and, I was in Desert Storm, and I'm here, and once that was said, this girl next to me gets up and she starts yelling at me, "No blood for oil. I protested that war." Da, da, da. And, I'm kind of taken aback, kind of in shock. And as she goes on, I revert back to Marine mode, snap. And kind of didn't really think. And I said, I go, "What the fuck is this, Vietnam? What are you, a baby killer?" And, some people started to laugh. But the professor, he didn't really take kindly to that. And he's like, "We respect everybody in this classroom. You will not talk to her like that." And I go, "What the fuck? She's screaming at me. Aren't you going to fucking say something?" And it was really funny. He's like, "You get out of my class right now." And so I wound up going back to my dorm room, and I get a call, and I had to go see the dean of the university. And I will finish that story because it was really entertaining what happened in a future episode. But let me finish up, my last letter. I feel manhood is upon me, and I am no longer the happy-go-lucky teen I used to be. Anyway, tell the family I said hello, and I will see them when I return. We have a lot of catching up to do. That one sentence that kind of captures it for me is, I was no longer the happy-go-lucky teen, from high school and in the Marines. I don't know, like I said, the war hadn't changed me significantly, but it did have an impact on me, and it did have a huge impact on my future. When we read into this I'll kind of talk about. But what I'd like to do is read another journal entry and provide some insights into myself based upon on these journal entries. March 5th, 1991. The past couple days have been pretty laid back. 2 days of suntanning time, and one day I went back to Cabrit to get paid. Yes, finally, after almost 3 months of no pay, I got one lump sum, almost $3,000, which I sent home to good old Dad. Today has rained all day, and it sucks. Now we have to have one man on duty 24 hours a day with full gear because of the terrorist threat. Bullshit continues. There's two things I want to talk about this journal entry. The first one is about the pay. I hadn't received any pay for months, and when I joined the Marine Corps, I can remember, and I still have my first leave and earnings statement, LES. And as a young E1 in the Marine Corps, my monthly pay was around $800 a month. And for me, I thought that was a small fortune, and it was great. I went and bought a car like most junior enlisted, guys do, and spent my money on kind of just partying and having fun, and not so much drinking, but just going and doing fun things. But I can remember, my father, he did a very good job instilling some very important values in me, and one of those was managing money and finance, and that carried over for my entire life. And I was very fortunate to learn the value of hard work and be frugal and save and not spend money on frivolous things. And these are the valuable lessons, life lessons that I learned and I applied. And these are the life lessons that I hope to instill in my children. I want them to be successful. I want them to understand the value of hard work. I want them to not take for granted things in life and, hopefully be successful. So let me talk about the other point. So I had talked about these things that we were doing prior to the war: stand to, stand down, the monotony, the moving, all of the stresses that were forced upon us by our leadership. And when the war was over, I thought, okay, this stuff would end, we're done, but it didn't. It continued. And this was one of the things that really aggravated me about the Marine Corps and my future deployments to Afghanistan. The fact that rules of engagement and these simple things like standing duty all the time, and there was now a terrorist threat, and we were miles off the border now, and there was no way that anybody could be around us. We were so isolated, but yet we had to have 24-hour duty and in full gear, and it was one of those things that really solidified my decision to get out, that this bullshit would continue. And I had hoped that common sense would prevail, and unfortunately it didn't. And so anyway, I'd like to end here, and what I want to do is, in the next couple episodes, I really want to help everybody understand this transition period, and I want to introduce new twists into the story, into the plot, and talk about the things that were happening. And it really will show and shed light on some of the personal things that I had to deal with. And when I talk about Belinda and our relationship and how that was evolving and how it transformed, and really how it was very shocking what happened. And I can't wait to share that with everyone. And the story will, I promise, continue to evolve, and hopefully you will enjoy it. So anyway, hey, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you watching, and I really ask that you share these, not because I'm trying to get likes and be a famous YouTuber. It's because these lessons that I'm going to discuss and the experiences that I had, I think can help anybody in their lives. So thanks again, and Like I said, please like it and share it and comment. I love your comments. And thanks again for joining me for the War Journal podcast.